Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this beautiful morning, and it's lovely and crisp. And Jennifer, welcome to Australia. Let me get you fix that. Okay. That should be.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Welcome to Australia, and Bertie, thank you very much as welcome to the Australia. Bertie actually spent a gap year and did some travelling on the East Coast. And Jennifer, I discovered, is here because after a long lost friend that she knew from South Africa shows up in the UK with a new husband and says, you must come to Australia, and this is how she's ended up. Yes. So thank you, Barbara. I look forward to meeting her, to congratulate her on the wisdom to bring you both here. And Bertie, it's nice to have bring your mother this time round to this country. Innovation to me is probably a little different from what a lot of people think. I think innovation is about solving a problem or creating a new opportunity in a different way to the solution that's always been provided. And Jennifer's had a very interesting career, and as we know, this is the outcome of looking over the fields of where she lived and came up with this amazing concept. But before we go down that road and watch the little video, I wanted to ask Jennifer, you started life as a barrister in law. Tell me about you growing up and what your parents' expectation were in terms of going to university, choosing the profession, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, is this working? I'm really...
yes, it is working.
Is everybody hearing it? I'm very not used to it. I'm so used to my voice throwing, so if I shout at you, please just to cower. Very interesting question. Not a question I was prepared for at all. But interestingly, I was one of 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls. And my father decided that he was going to educate the boys and not the girls. So I had virtually zero education until I was 16, when I went to what was then called a technical college, which you guys run
here. They were here. They existed here too.
That was a moment I just literally fell in with the most extraordinary tutor who taught me economics, and he was called Mr. Button. I'll never forget him to this day. And he was an inspiration, and I suddenly thought, God, education, academia is definitely my way forward. So up until the age of 16, I did virtually no qualifications at all. And suddenly at 16, I was completely inspired. But the truth of the matter is, I also thought I'd look quite good in the wig. I did think I didn't know about whether I do or not. I always thought, but and then it was serendipitous. I was the first girl that was taken on in Chambers with John Mortimer. I don't know whether you know him from Rumpole of the Bailey, who used to write that series or wrote that series. I was the legal advisor on the series, and I was lucky because I was the girl that was taken on, the statutory girl that was taken on at the time. So
did your sisters follow you?
No, they didn't. One went into cooking, very, very talented. And the other one runs the most amazing family charity called Living Paintings Trust, which is for people with partial and full blindness to appreciate the arts. So, yeah, interesting.
But all of you did something with your lives.
Yes.
There were a greater expectation than what your father assumed.
Absolutely. Well, my younger brother now is writing the financial regulations for Kazakhstan. So I think he sort of hit the jackpot there.
Which leads into a very ample, because you have a love of India.
Love of India.
So what took you down that road of India, and what was the
that was very
trigger?
Much the tense. That was very much the tense. You'll see in a short while the video will show you the shikar tents. And when I had the idea of Camp Kerala, it was a matter of finding the right tent. And I'd stayed in these tents in the Masai Mara in Africa, but they were all created in Rajasthan, in Jodhpur. And my first trip out to India was to Jodhpur, to the and the Maharaj of Jodhpur, who's subsequently actually become quite a buddy, believe it or not, was just starting up a charity to generate jobs for the people of Jodhpur, and they were making the shikar tents, and I was his first customer. And as a consequence, I bought 30, as you'll hear, as the tail comes out. And since then, we've had a sort of constant stream, which has kept people in work in Jodhpur, which has been actually a very big part of Camp Kerala as well. So there's about 35 people in Jodhpur who are
Reliant on you.
And we're reliant on them too. And we do keep all these people.
Let's go back to you graduated, you practiced law,
Yes.
you went to chambers.
Yeah.
Most people would have, for a lot of people, that in itself would have been an achievement from the fact that your father didn't even consider educating you at the time. What was the trigger that said to you from, oh, this would be a lovely idea, to, I only get to do this once, let's go for it?
I was feeling of I hate injustice. I hate seeing people accused of things that they wrongly, and I'm still exactly the same, and that was the trigger. I can't, if somebody's wrongly accused of dropping litter or something in the street, I have a very deep passion about rectifying that, I think. And that was where the passion came from.
So where was the passion and the idea for taking yourself out of law, which you did, you did that while you were setting up the business.
I did.
But what was it that triggered the idea and then went from an idea? Because I think that a lot of people, entrepreneurs, which are a very overused word in my opinion, but people with ideas, all of us have ideas.
Yes.
But not many of those ideas actually become practical or can then have the financial support to actually, there's lots of grants and that, but it's very difficult to actually sustain yourself as well as growing your business. What was the thing that said, I'm looking over these fields, I'm seeing this concert and think I should do something about it?
Yeah. I think it's necessity and opportunity, that one. Necessity was that I was still working as a barrister in London, and I had 3 young children. I was on my own, had 3 young children. And one of them, Georgia, was in intensive care, and the judge wouldn't release me to go and see her in intensive care. And that was my epiphanic moment. I suddenly realized I've got my life balance wrong. So the necessity was there, but obviously, you have to get the bread on the table as well. And then the opportunity came along, which you will see shortly, that I was looking over the fields of Glastonbury, and there was this opportunity. And also I had actually identified a hole in the market as well. That's another very important thing, I think.
How important do you think it is actually in terms of success? Because I think what you've hit is there was a hole or a problem. Innovation is about solving, creating a solution.
Yeah.
You saw a hole, so you created a solution.
Yes.
How important do you think that is actually one of the first steps in that innovating process?
Yes, I think it's fundamental. I think it's crucial to that. And I think a hole in the market or a problem with the market, it's fundamental that then if you can see a way of rejigging it so that you can then pull off the solution is absolutely, I'm with you 100%.
So we might watch the video and then talk
Give you
about
much more of
those
an idea.
first steps to get to this point.
So this is what we do at Camp Kerala.
Can everyone see?
When I was 6 years old, I broke my leg. And I was running from my brother and his friends, and tasted the sweet perfume of the mountain grass I rolled down. I was younger then. Take me back to when I found my heart, broke it here, made friends and lost them through the years. And I've not seen the boring fields in so long. I know I've grown, but I can't wait to go home. I'm on my way, driving at 90 down those country lanes, singing to Tiny Dancer, and I miss the way you make 15 years old and smoking hand-rolled cigarettes. Running from the law through the backfields and getting drunk with my friends. Had my first kiss on a Friday night. I don't reckon that I did it right, but I was younger then. Take me back to when we found weekend jobs, and when we got paid, we'd buy cheap spirits and drink them straight. Me and my friends have not thrown up in so long. Oh, how we've grown, but I can't wait to go home. I'm on my way, driving at 90 down those country lanes, singing to Tiny Dancer, and I miss the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the castle on the hill. Over the castle on the hill. Over the castle on the hill. Miss the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the castle on the hill. Over the castle on the hill.
Still gives you a thrill, doesn't it? It does. It still does. Congratulations. There, it never goes away, does it? That,
No.
that excitement.
That's the passion you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. That's just love.
But this is not just glam camping. You've created a
Yeah.
village
Yeah.
at an event.
Yeah.
And what the thing that I see is that you saw people were going to come to this
Yeah.
this festival, but you've given them a reason to come and experience the festival in a new
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
We have up in the Adelaide Hills over the Easter a race called Oakbank at the Oakbank races. And this would be an amazing thing for anyone who remembers Oakbank. In the days it was this most amazing weekend.
Yeah.
Now not so good.
Yeah.
This could be a real
Yeah.
improvement, I have to say. It might
game
give a few
changer.
people, yeah.
Yes.
When you saw your vision,
Yeah.
or when you saw the whole
Yes.
and then created your solution,
Yeah.
was this what you imagined?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition how the whole thing happened, which I'll just sort of dodge into very, very briefly, because then it makes a little bit more sense of the whole thing. Was that and in 2000 I'd bought, there was a moment when you saw all the tents at the top. Those are the actual fields that I bought in 2000, which were attached to a really beautiful derelict house, which didn't have any, when I say derelict, I mean really derelict, no electricity, no water, and no roof. And
I wouldn't call that a house.
yeah,
but
it was exactly, you know.
a ruin would be
A
appropriate.
ruin is good, exactly.
Grand
a ruin.
designs.
Exactly, and my children were horrified that I'd moved them to this ruin in the middle of a field somewhere. And the estate agent, I will always remember to this day, his description. He said I was going to come and live in a lost and tranquil valley. That was my lost and tranquil valley. Anyway, in 2000, the Glastonbury Festival had actually lost its license through bad behaviour, because it used to have a license for 175,000 and 225,000 people turned up. So it had upset a lot of people, including the local council, which was called the Mendip District Council. And so in 2000, it was fantastic. I did all my legal searches, obviously, and nothing came up on any of the legal searches because it didn't exist. So I happily bought the house and started doing it up. And once I started renovating it, all the neighbours came and with one voice, they'd all say they wanted to see what idiot had bought the house. And I thought it was because it didn't have any roof or electricity or water or anything, but it wasn't at all. It was because they knew only too well that then in the next door field, as you can see, is the Glastonbury Festival. So 2000 didn't happen because of license 2001 didn't happen to the license. And 2002, you might remember, in the UK is no reason why you should. We had foot and mouth, so that didn't happen then either. So then 2003, to my complete horror, by this time I'd been told that I was going to be attacked in my bed and my children were going to be turned into drug addicts. And, my life was basically ruined. Suddenly in the fields that I'd spent my days wandering happily through with the dogs, and suddenly this extraordinary city started being constructed, and by this time I was apoplectic with fear, and I wrote to the guy who owns it, who's now become a hugely good friend, as you can imagine, called Michael Eavis, and I don't know about you, I bet it's the same with you, when you get angry, your writing gets very big, so I wrote a very big letter to Michael Eavis saying, you've got to look after me and my family, this is an outrage. I got all the little children all lined up with their white T-shirts on, all ironed, and in we went.
Only a lawyer could come up with that way.
We went in, and within half an hour, we were just what they call Glastonbury, and they had fake tattoos and henna and beautiful purple hair and things like that. And I suddenly realised that's the moment. I suddenly realised we were up against a complete phenomena, and it was a heady combination, which a lot of you know here. It's 225,000 people having the time of their lives, and it's addictive. When you've been to a festival, you want to go back. There's something fantastic about being in a festival where everybody's having the best time. Anyway, so that was 2003, 2004. Then this is to go back to your question about how I identified the problem was, and I had a lot of my friends staying at the house, which then had roof, electricity, and luckily water, and nice wine in the fridge, and baths and things like that. And they were all beginning to say, this is definitely the way of doing a festival. Exactly. So I thought that there was a sort of a penny moment dropping in my head then. And then in 2004, Glastonbury just played straight into my hand, as only Glastonbury Festival could do, with their squeaky clean license. They managed to breach it in 2004, and they managed to breach the noise restriction, by which time my brand new roof, was the roof that the decibel reading was taken off. So they literally turned up in my house with an open checkbook saying, how much will it cost for you to write to Mr. Uzzle of the Mendip District Council and tell him that you don't mind your roof being blown off every June. So I said that was the moment, and I suddenly saw the opportunity, and I grasped it with both hands. And I said, I want an allocation of tickets, and I've got this idea. It's going to be called Camp Kerala, and they ran with it, and they've looked after me ever since, and they've been amazing. But what was very interesting as far as innovation and entrepreneurism is what happened next. Because I got in myself inadvertently in the middle of a maelstrom in the press, and the maelstrom was created like this, because Glastonbury wonderfully is totally egalitarian. I was flying in the face of egalitarianism, obviously, with this whole concept. And Maurice Chittenden of the Sunday Times, I'm sure you've heard of him, he's a fantastic journalist, decided to write an article about Glastonbury having lost its way, and I was right in the centre of it, which is a very, very good example of there's nothing like bad press. There's no such thing as bad press. It was on page 4 of the Sunday Times on the 19th of January 2005, and that was when the rather ugly word that I'm afraid I don't like at all, glamping, was coined to describe us. And he wrote this article, and a woman in New York, Carol McFadden, saw it and immediately booked 10 of the tents from a standing start. So I mean that is a fantastic story. Just as a matter of getting in the middle of a maelstrom. Lucky
opportunity, not using it.
Yeah.
One of the questions that constantly goes, and I'm sure for those that are in this room that have an idea, is how do you fund an idea?
Yes.
Because ultimately you were working.
Yeah.
You had a professional career. You obviously were still raising your children. They were still young, so they had to be fed and those sort of things. The investment, capital investment in, you had 10 bookings, which is good, but you still had to build the tents.
Oh, absolutely.
You had to do all those things. And you had to make, I think one of the things when you do something like this, the first one has to be almost the best so that people keep them building on that.
Yeah.
How did you go about actually putting yourself without risking your children's lives in terms financially?
It was a huge risk, massive risk, and it was just on 2 points on that one. One was I was lucky enough by that stage to have got a bit of a pension that I'd got together from working as a barrister, but I put every single penny into it. So I took a huge risk, a really big risk. But I was still young, I was still 45. So I knew I'd still got a lot of working years in me. So it wasn't that much of a risk. And I was still carrying on. I was really lucky because I still carried on actually working until 2005 when I finally hung my wig up. Couldn't find it the other day. So I was lucky in the fact that I did have a bit of a pot of gold that I could actually rely on in the background.
Do you think that it's also important, and I think that this is where young entrepreneurs or young ideas people, especially when it comes to technology businesses that usually use up capital very quickly because it takes so long for it to go from testing it, working at medical research, those sort of things, is not losing who you are and not becoming a slave to the funders. Because one of the difficulties about innovation is it requires angel investors, and we're not very good in this country compared to some other places in the world about understanding that an angel investor is literally an angel and that they need to assume that their money is not going to be returned. You put yourself at that challenge. You were your own angel investor. Do you think that also gave you more confidence and strength rather than actually having to...
I think it frightened me to death, to be honest. I had to be really, really brave. I did feel as though I was jumping into an abyss. I really did. I mean, it could have gone either way, and I would just generally not have been sitting here now. I would have been back at the old Bailey doing injunctions.
But the process allowed you not having to answer to a group of men in suits saying, well, why didn't that work?
No, exactly. I mean, that was a huge luxury. But the other thing also is possibly fake it till you make it. That's also another fantastic thing.
Bullshit baffles brains every time, doesn't it?
It really is. Because on exactly that one, we did on the first year have this wonderful, almost angel from New York, coming in to buy the tents. She was my angel. And but I then filled the rest of the tents up, the remaining tents up, with all my family and friends. So the press thought that we were full. So they backed off, and they were all ready to pounce on me and say, Camp Carola fails. Exactly.
I always find it fascinating when you ring a restaurant on a Friday at 6:00 to see if you can get a booking. They should never say yes. It should always be no, because you should always say, I'm booked, so that therefore...
It's a very interesting part of human nature. If it's full and you can't get in, the one thing you want to do is get in. And I worked that out right from the beginning.
What was the first event like compared to what we saw here?
Oh, terrifying. We had a biblical storm, which didn't help things either. I mean, it really was absolutely the most terrifying thing. Two things happened, actually. The first, which will make you laugh so much, because the tents, as I've told you, were coming from Rajasthan. So they were coming straight from Rajasthan to Glastonbury Festival. They were held up in Felixstowe, which is our main dock, on the basis they obviously were full of drugs. Obviously, full of drugs, weren't they? Anyway, so they didn't arrive until the Tuesday, at about midday on Tuesday, and our first guest, Carol McFadden, was flying in from New York, arriving at Thursday at lunchtime. So we had 48 hours to construct these tents. We had 30 tents. And no instructions of how to put the things up.
Why would you assume there's an instruction?
I know, exactly.
The first mistake.
So we finally got the tents up, and then we sort of thought, well, there's a possibility we're now going to survive this. And then the biblical storm happened, and it was the most bizarre thing. And it came around and stood in the valley on top of us with this terrible thunder. And then it went away, and everything was going to be fine. And then it came back again. And so the first year was terrifying. Second, third year was terrifying too. I mean, the first 3 years were terrifying because I was completely out of my comfort zone. I was ready, any moment for a person with a clipboard coming along saying, actually, you're doing the wrong thing here. Health and safety, I'm going to close you down. But you learn so quickly then.
Did you have any thoughts? Because so often in those moments, like first year and those first 48 hours and those things, and all those things, and then you get through it and people say, oh, that was fantastic. but you so fear, are they going to come back? Did you think after the first year, no, I don't think I'll do that again next year?
Definitely. I mean, it is absolutely terrifying when the elements are against you. And England is so much more dramatic than here, because we really do have some hideous weather. So yeah, there have been moments that I've definitely thought, what on earth am I doing? Get me back to the Old Bailey.
So moving along, you've been doing this now for a few years at this festival, having 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, having the background of your father saying, we didn't think that girls counted in that regard. How have you raised your children differently?
It's I think probably there were 2 people who were instrumental in what happened to me, and one was a guy called Charles Barton, who, when I was 19, told me that he was a barrister, a very successful barrister, and I can remember exactly where we were standing. He said, "You haven't got it in you to be a barrister." I loved that, and it was the best challenge in the world. And another one, the second one, and I will thank Charles Barton forever for that. The other one was a guy called George Stevenson, who told me, he was a South African, who told me that the idea of putting tents up in England was absolutely crazy, and I was never ever going to succeed. And I'll thank both those men forever. So yeah, I love a good challenge. But the children coming in was not what I was expecting at all.
Let's go back to the first children growing up. They obviously saw you this, but I assume that you wanted to give them an education, give them the options.
Yeah.
And so what were they doing before they all started knocking on your door?
Yeah, they all read history at university, so they were all historians. Where do we start? Georgia is in the middle one, so she's my eldest one. And she was in London. Funnily enough, both the girls went into an event sort of organisation. And at one stage, at about 11 o'clock at night, I was talking to the one on the right-hand side, Freya. And it was 11 o'clock at night, and she was working for another a big events group in London called Inception. And I suddenly thought, what on earth is she doing working for them? Why is she not working for me at 11 o'clock at night? So I headhunted her, which is great. And then Bert was at Exeter, and then I suddenly realised that one of the many things I'm hopeless at is adding up. And I suddenly realised that he was a financial guru, and I was so relieved when he came into my life, wherever he is, because he's in charge of all the finances of it all. Not what I was expecting at all. This was I was not expecting them to come into the business, but I'm the lucky one here, guys, because they all are.
One of the challenges. About family, because it's now obviously the 3 of them, is how do you stay as a family and disconnect from the conversations about business? Because as that currently, there's only the 3 of them, but at some point there may be partners or grandchildren. She's envious because I have them and she doesn't.
Scratch your eyes out.
And so, but it is one of those things, isn't it? Is how do you have, because I grew up in business. From the day I was born, my parents were in business, and we talked business from the time I could speak.
Yes.
How do you disconnect that? Because you did this at a later point.
That is bringing other people in to advise. So I brought in 3 non-executive directors and also a business strategist called Sarah Springer, who's actually given us a way of functioning and a way of being able, just really being taught how to switch off. But you do talk business, and actually it's all of our passions. We do find ourselves talking business quite a lot, but we all live independently. Although the headquarters are in Somerset, and we always have a Monday morning meeting, so everybody has to be in Somerset for the Monday morning meeting. The children all live in London. So
do you think that also helps, that they're not actually on the premises 24/7, so that you have that separation and separate lives?
Hugely important.
And have you, by your Bertie being the financial is,
Yeah.
have the girls then grow their own separate roles?
Yeah, this was very, very important actually. As businesses grow, this is a very important moment because there's a moment, and everybody will know this one, when a small business cannot go any further. It needs to change as a fundamental structure. And that was the moment that the roles were implemented. And as a business model, I've been enormously lucky because I have my eldest one who could sell ice to the Eskimos, so she's in charge of my sales totally. I've got Freya with the lovely headband of flowers on, who could organise an event, and does organise an event at the most extraordinary locations flawlessly. She's my lists girl, so she organises all my lists and gets, loos transported into the most extraordinary locations. And then, as you know, Bert is my financial guru.
And going on from that,
Yes.
because you've now taken this outside of your Somerset Hill.
Yes.
And you've now taken it internationally.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those locations and experiences.
Well, the other one in the UK was the Isle of Wight, and that's another iconic festival in the UK. And then there is then is this incredible festival in Thailand, which is called Wonderfruit, which is a sort of creative arts and music festival as well. So there are the festivals, there are bucket list events that we have identified. But we've also now been lucky enough to have a bank of wonderful clients who I will then say, what is it that you want to do? And one of them, for example, said the other day, I want to go and see the tigers in India, and I want to drive classic cars through the Rajasthani desert. And so we were able then to sort
Create that event.
Yeah, and so there we go. But we're sort of scoping bucket list events which need accommodation. Or experiences. Exactly.
Being in a location that creates an experience that it's unique.
Because everything now, as you know so well, is experiential.
Exactly.
People are bored of having watches or whatever and showing
Well, there's only so much you can do at some time.
Exactly.
And ultimately, the only thing that we leave behind is actually the memories we create.
Exactly.
And this is an experience that spends it. I assume that, has anyone asked you to do a wedding?
Yes, I'm not very good at bridezillas, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure whether we have done weddings, but we've done weddings for clients already.
Yes.
And so it's special people who are saying, can I have a special event? Then we will put the tents up with them.
One of the things that often happens in business is you start from an idea, you build it. It goes from a small business to now that you've got an advisory board and you've got directors, you've also put in strategies and that sort of thing. There's always an assumption that bigger is better, or we have to take that next stage, or you have to go public, or you have to, or the other thing is that one in a family business in particular, that some members want to extract the capital gain of that because they might want to do something else. What's the next 10 years in terms of not the actual operational business, but where do you see it?
Yes, I think what we've all decided as a team is only to do a certain number of events. So we're not going to start franchising or spreading ourselves too thin. So we will do 4 or 5 extraordinary things per year, and we'll do it with the core team. So I have a core team of 10 people. So I have my own catering unit and my own bar manager who go with me wherever I go in the world. Yeah. And that is crucial. So it's like an extended family house party. And we go as a team. So you cannot dilute that.
Yes.
And that's our USP, really.
Because the other thing that people, I think, ignore is it might be 4 or 5, but it's 3 months in the planning.
Oh, well, tell me about it.
And it doesn't matter that you've done it before.
No,
it's
you're
still
right.
all
And different things go wrong, and things you think that I've really nailed this because I've been doing this for 13 years. Something happens,
And it's totally a supply
like a cow
change.
suddenly gets out in the next door field or something. Something completely. It's events. Whoever does events in this room, it's events. It's the happy world of events.
Let alone weather.
Yeah, let alone weather. Yeah.
What's if as that 16-year-old, if you could talk to that 16-year-old with the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience you've had today, what would you say to her?
I've always felt slightly on my back foot because I wasn't educated from an earlier age. I feel that I wish I'd looked at my books, but there was nobody over my shoulder telling me to look at my books. Education is absolutely fundamental. It gives you that incredible feeling of security.
And freedom.
And freedom. That's what it's all about. And you go to these amazing places in Africa where the one thing that they want is education, especially girls, especially young girls. And they get educated. It's terrifying. They get educated up to the age of 11, and then they know they have got no future at all. So education is completely key, and it's one of the fundamental issues that I'm dealing with our philanthropic arm.
Bertie, was your mother always looking over your books? First of all, thank you very much for coming to Australia, and then getting up early and having this time. We thank Barbara very much for this, by accident reacquaintance, and that drew you back to Australia. Could I just ask all the audience to please, in the usual manner, thank Jennifer for her time.
Delighted.